Hi, my name is Helen Steele and you are in my studio here in Emmyvale in rural County Monaghan, right on the border. As you can see, it's really messy, but today we're going to be doing a little bit of marbling with paint, and we are going to be throwing acrylics and multicolored paints all over the place. But the first thing I'm going to do is start with a little bit of marbling, which is probably something you can do at home. It might end up looking something like this piece here, which is all kind of swirly and stuff. So what you'll probably need is a bucket or a wash basin, plastic basin, some paper and some enamel paint. And make sure wherever you're painting that maybe you have baby wipes or gloves, because it's sticky and messy, and make sure to cover all the surfaces if possible with some black sacks, so as you don't get paint all over the place. It's kind of okay for me to get paint here, but I'm sure your mum and dad mightn't be too happy with messy sticky paint all over your house. Okay, let's get started. So once you have your, wherever the area is that you're going to be painting on, once you have it covered with some plastic bags, and make sure it's not too slippy, the best thing to do is maybe get something like this, or one of these, or a basin, and get a little bit of water, actually quite a lot. Maybe half a litre of water, and pour it in. And then, because oil and water don't mix really well, oil usually sits on water, you pour in a little bit of white paint or a little bit of red. And as you can see, some of it is floating at the top and some is sinking to the bottom. So if you just drizzle your paint like that, your enamel, if you drizzle it, it should sit on the top. And then get some more, but mix the colours. So just let it drip ever so lightly so as it'll sit on top of the paint that you've already poured in. And then what I'm going to do with this is I'm not going to pour it because I'm afraid that it might just sink to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drizzle some of this on top, just like that. And then I'm going to get these. I decided to try out two different kinds of paper. This is sandpaper, but regular paper is fine. I thought the sandpaper might give a cool kind of grainy effect, but we're just going to try normal, just standard paper. We're going to just flatten the sheet of paper on top of the paint. It's okay if some water drips on it. And then, so you slowly pull it up so as the paint sticks to the paper but actually falls as well at the same time. And you can turn it to create loads of different kind of weird and strange shapes. I kind of like the way it flows. It takes on like a whole other life of its own. So it's like you and the paint are working together. But nearly the paint has more control, which is exciting, I think. Now these can take a long time to dry, but the best thing to do really is to let it dry somewhere flat. Like I've just put it on this. But in like a hardware shop or a paint provider shop, you can mix in here with your paint. You can mix, it's like a fluid that will speed up your drying time. So instead of it taking weeks, it can take a day, which is so much better. So now I'm going to add maybe a few more colours. I'm going to add a little bit of black, which is probably not a good idea. But it's just to give a little bit more colour and definition. You don't have to have these huge big tins. You can get enamel in much smaller tins, which will probably be much easier to handle. And it's kind of hard to get it in lots of different colours, so it's usually the most available are these colours that I'm working with, but you can also get some really nice silvers and golds. Enamel is usually used on like metalwork and furniture and things like that. That's why it's kind of different to your normal standard paint to work with. It's a little bit stinky as well, so if you are sensitive to smells, you might want to wear a mask or something like that. And again, I'm going to use just the end of a paintbrush, but if you don't have paintbrushes at home, you can just use like a twig from a tree or a stick. It's kind of fun painting with sticks as well, especially if you're just doing these kind of dripping and running and pouring paintings as well, and especially with marbling. What I like is kind of layering and layering and layering with the paint. I like what it does. Just, you could spend all day doing this, just layering and layering all these different colours and seeing the shapes it takes on and the forms it takes on. And you can be like as physical as you want. You can like go crazy, you know, with your shaking the paint on, which gives kind of nearly like a stringy, spaghetti, chewing gummy kind of vibe to the piece. And it also gives great layers, great layering opportunities as well when you go to put the paper down. With black this time. So lift it in gently, pat it down just to make sure the paint is actually holding to the paper, and take the edges and lift it up. Ooh, that's kind of nice. And if you feel it hasn't taken hold of all of the paper, you can just dip it back in again. And that is piece number 2. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it on the other side of the sandpaper, so it's going to be kind of grainy. I don't know, I think it might stick better, I'm not sure, but we're going to give it a go. And this time I'm going to put more paint in. I don't know if you can see this. This is so pretty. Just the way the paint has kind of mixed in the pot. It's just gorgeous. It just takes on a whole life and story of its own, swirly and drippy. Okay, so this time I'm going to put a bit more white in, because we want the colours to really layer and go a bit crazy again. The black really worked amazingly, gave such incredible definition. So I'm hoping it will still do that for us. I'm going to be a little bit more greedy with the red. So I'm going to drip some of this blue on. And I think I need a bit more white as well. Does this cool kind of separation if you just tip it over and back and over and back. Ooh. I'm going to just take a little bit more blue because I'm just liking what's happening here. And tiny bit of red. And last tiny bit of white. Then we are ready to go. So this time we're going to go with the grainy paper. I've never done this before, worked on the right side of sanding paper, so it could be horrific or it could be really nice, but it's fun to experiment. So please be nice, please be nice. Oh, no. Oh, it's not bad. We're going to have to go for a second dip, though. How's it looking? Oh, yeah. So this is the last piece. So we're going to go hell for leather. We're going to use loads of paint. I'm really hoping this time that we'll get a really nice mix like we did on the second piece, which is this one here. I thought the whole mix was really good. So fingers crossed. We get some more red. And this time I'm going to use this little stick to get most of the paint, because it's going to sit on top beautifully. And some more white. Some more red. Okay. And so this is our last piece of marbling. It's been fun. So when I lift this, I'm just going to pop it back down here. So layer it in. It's so cold here in the studio that the cold water doesn't feel cold, it actually feels warm. And now I'm going to slowly lift this up and I'm going to pop it here. So, ooh, that was like a lovely wave. Oh, wow. That was really well behaved. And I don't know if you can notice, but once the air gets at the paint, all these bubbles start popping up and this amazing separation happens. So it looks nearly like sea foam or something like that. I love when that happens. I'm really pleased with that. It looks like waves of colour. So thank you for joining me for our marbling part. Now we're going to go into the studio where I'm going to actually throw paint against the wall of my studio, which has like these kind of canvas, plasticky kind of walls, and then I photograph it as the paint's moving and creating all these amazing shapes, and then I'm going to digitally manipulate it and make it into prints for my clothes. So you're in my messy part of the studio, which is my favorite, and I just did a little tester over there. I'm going to start with colors that you don't really think of mixing together. So my sister just painted her house and she'd some leftover paint, so I stole it on her. Well, I didn't, I asked her. So it's this kind of like standard kind of wall paint for your house. Nice, calm, kind of greeny colour. Green is great for kind of renewal and for kind of balancing and positive energy, and yeah, it's a nice calming color. Orange, on the other hand, is not. It's joyous and creative and eternally optimistic. So I'm going to mix the two. So I don't know if you can see. Again, I'm just kind of layering these in. I don't know how this is. The thing about this kind of painting is I actually don't know how it's going to turn out. So I always have to practice on small scale to see how it's going to turn out, because messing with this amount of paint can be really expensive. So as you can see, the luminous orange and the green, I think, look really nice together. And so what I usually do is I just give it a little swirl, and as you can see, it mixes beautifully and flows down the wall. But then it starts to separate. Again, the air is mixing the two paints. This paint here is not your standard wall paint, so it's not going to fit perfectly and it's not going to work really well with this paint, which is the really exciting thing. It's all about exploring and seeing what mixing different kind of paints does. So it gives this beautiful effect here, and it constantly changes. So it's like a whole other story, which I love. So that's the green and orange story. And now I think we should do, they'll probably clash violently and be totally disgusting, but I think we should do some yellow and blue. So because we've yellow here already, I think I'll just pop some yellow on there as well. So here's some, this is again another paint. This is kind of, you can get this in the art and hobby shop. It's really good. It's called Reeves, and they do, it's kind of like a flowy paint. So it's really good for doing this kind of thing with. Obviously, I would not recommend doing this at home. You'll get in major trouble with your parents. So this is the blue and the yellow. Yellow is another really optimistic color. It's great for creativity. It's actually really good for kind of invigorating and kind of waking up the brain. And blue is a really strong color. It's you know, it's always a sign of peace and loyalty. But so here we go. And I think I'll just mix a lot more, because that paint is not doing what I want it to. So I'm just going to throw some of this up here as well. Again, they're the flowy paints. They're really, really good. And it will with the purple too. Fluorescent pink. Just does great stuff. It lifts everything. And then let's clash violently with some red. So I'm going to use some white now as well. Just white's great for breaking things up. I usually follow it as it mixes. I don't know if you can see, but like there's great separation happening here. It reminds me of like polar caps, or like the caps of the Alps or mountains. It's amazing. You can just let your imagination run wild with what you think you're seeing, as each tiny little piece just flows into the other. It's brilliant. I love it. Now the only thing about taking these shots is that you have to be careful that you're not getting the glossy glare from the light outside, and you need to make sure that you're not or sometimes even when the piece is dry and it's not moving, you can't really explain to people what is so interesting, because watching paint dry is kind of boring, but watching paint kind of mix and flow is really interesting. And sometimes you need that kind of visual story of showing people how paint mixing and falling is exciting, because it's so fleeting, it's so short. So that's it from me. Thanks for joining in to Barretstown Live. Thank you to all the campers and your families, and thank you for helping to power positivity. Best of luck. Bye.